All right, let's talk about what you do if you are leading a toxic workplace. So, the first assumption is that you are not the toxic boss, because it's most likely if you are the toxic boss, you're not aware of the toxicity that you're creating. And so, we're going to focus on you leaders out there who are enlightened and understand what's happening in your organization and want to advocate for change. So, let's talk about that. When there are challenging dynamics in the workplace, toxicity, these microaggressions, these tensions, these increased levels of absenteeism, of course, it all spills over. It's low morale, ripple effect, and then, of course, it's lower productivity. And then, of course, that spins out into lower revenues. And of course, when you have lower revenues, you have to have layoffs. And when you have layoffs, you let go of people that you really needed. And then the people that left behind, they're thinking, oh my goodness, now I have to do 7 jobs instead of the 3 I had. And that, ripple effect creates more negativity, reduces the morale, further reduces the productivity, which further reduces the revenue. Right. You get it. So you as the leader, it is your job. Job number 1 is to be that football tackler, right? That blocker where you have to unblock the obstacles that are faced by your team. That's your job. That is what your job is. Yes, there's people management and people going and fostering collaboration and making sure communication is good and being that watchdog to make sure there's no nonsense happening on your team, anything unethical or toxic, all that stuff. But it's really to unblock what is happening, because you have to create a healthy and productive work environment. And that involves training, education, and yep, you bet, you leading by example. So how do you do this if you're going to try to move the culture and shift it towards being positive as far as an organization? And what is a positive culture? Well, go figure. It's one that fosters, respect, right? Imagine that. RESPECT, right? We all know that song. That's what you need. And another part of the culture is inclusivity. That's right. So when the gal with blue hair comes into your office, people shouldn't be making comments about her blue hair. That's her choice to express herself that way. Does her blue hair make her less capable of doing her job because the dye is somehow infiltrating her brain and her hands that she can't do what she needs to do? I don't think so, right? So back off. Another part of a positive culture, transparency. Let people know what's going on. Communicate openly. Foster that two-way dialogue so you're not just talking at people and pushing information down, but it's dialogue, right? Dyad, 2 ways, where you are releasing and sharing information, but you are receiving it. And receiving it doesn't mean just hearing it. It means listening to understand and letting it land so that you can process what is really meant through the dialogue that you just had. All right, so how do you foster respect? You ensure that in meetings, if you see any of these microaggressions, little comments like I've seen before, oh, that's not a bad idea for a chick. Like, are you kidding me? You think somehow my brain power is less because I have 2 X chromosomes? I don't think so. Right. And so you as the boss has to just really get in there and foster respect and say, no, hold up. Or the quiet person on the team, because there's always one who doesn't say much, when they finally do want to exercise their opinion, give them the space. Have everybody else just back off and say, I want to hear what they have to say. Everybody, give them a moment. This is important. I want to hear, you need to hear. There's probably valuable insights here. And so you create that. Again, your job as that leader. Unblock people, create paths to enable forward progress. That's also related to promoting inclusivity. And you can take it another step further by really celebrating diversity, creating these opportunities for collaboration and teamwork amongst people who wouldn't otherwise work together. I'll give you an example. I was at a Fortune 10 and I had to do brainstorming to come up with all these wonderful new product ideas and things. And my management team just about lost their minds when they found out the types of folks that I was bringing into the brainstorming sessions. And I had hundreds of them. So what I would do is I would cherry pick. I would bring one of the executive administrators, one of the receptionists. I'd bring in even the custodians. I'd bring in product developers. I'd bring in scientists. I'd bring in the attorneys. And people are like, what are you doing? These people don't work together. Like, exactly. That's the whole point. When you enable free thinking and diversity of thought, not just diversity that's limited, so limited based on a skin color, like, come on. Move beyond that. Embrace all the different learnings, the cultures, the experiences, the past that people have had. Bring that together. That promotes inclusivity and creates that sense of belonging that people are looking for. All right. What about encouraging transparency? So you're thinking, ooh, I'm a leader. I can't really tell them that layoffs are coming because, of course, A, that's going to just decimate morale, but B, you have obligations, especially if you are a publicly held company or things like that, that can negatively affect the valuation of the company. You can't disclose these material things. So you've got to zip that trap, right? Zip it. Don't share those things. But you can encourage transparency. You can say things like, we are currently, as a leadership team, having some discussions ongoing now. We need to make some really important strategic decisions about the direction we're going to take for the next year and beyond. They are consuming my time. I'm sorry I can't share details. I will share whatever I can as soon as I am legally allowed to disclose it. Okay. Well, that's being transparent and ethical and doing your job legally, right? You're doing all the right things. That's good. How about communicating, right? How to be effective with that. That's key to organizational culture. So you want to encourage that everybody else is open and honest, and you give them a chance to have feedback and discussion. You create that safe space. Have you ever heard of psychological safety? Well, it's a huge thing. It's real. It's legit. People have to feel safe to be able to voice their opinions. What does that mean? Does it mean that they should be allowed to sound off, swear, cuss in front of everybody, point fingers and do no, that's not a safe space. You got to shut that shit down, right? That's the complete opposite of safe space. What it is that you as a leader allow people to have their voices heard. If you want to create a group situation and have people share things, you can have them submit Post-it notes, and then you can collect, ask a question. Everybody okay? Write it on your Post-it note, collect it and put it away. You don't know who wrote what? Great, especially if it's a large group, makes it even harder. And no one knows anybody's handwriting anymore. All we do is email and text each other, so we have no idea. We don't turn in handwritten reports, right? That went out with Radio Shack and Blockbuster. People can't even write anymore. So another story, another soapbox. Create forums like that where people can feel that their voices are heard. But here's the catch. If you open Pandora's box, be prepared. You're going to have to take it full circle and close it. That means whatever feedback you heard, that you come back after a reasonable period of time, and I don't mean months and years later. We all know the annual performance survey, company culture survey. You do it, and then a year later, you get another one, and you're thinking, you did nothing with the last one, so why am I even going to bother taking the bloody thing? No. Reasonable period of time, within some weeks after you've collected this information, that you go back to the group and you address everything that you can. Item 1, this is what we're going to change. We also heard this as a second priority. Hey, that's going to be a little trickier for us. We're not quite sure how to handle it yet, but it is on the agenda of the leadership team to resolve. Okay, so you're giving the information. That's great. And then my favorite, lead by example. Imagine that people look to you as their leader and they want to emulate what you do. If you're that person who's micromanaging and going, is it ready? Is it ready? I need the TPS report. It's late. You're 5 minutes late. Do you have it? Do you have it? When am I going to have it? Do you have it? Are you going to have it later today? Are you going to have it later today? Oh my goodness. People are not going to want to follow you on that. Lead by example. Treat others with respect. Right? We've moved beyond the golden rule, which is treat others how you would like to be treated. We're at the platinum rule now, which is treat others how you think they want to be treated. Taps into empathy. You actually have to think about the other person and not yourself. Woohoo! Imagine that. And I know that's hard. People get really wrapped around the axle with that because it's really freaking hard. And toxic bosses, I don't even think they can do the mental gymnastics to be able to do that. But that's another story. Here's something else that you can advocate for. If you're in the position as a leader with budget to do this, great. If you have to work to get the support of your peers or HR organization, work towards it. It is totally worth it. They show that training brings a 7-to-1 ROI. For every dollar you invest, you get $7 back in productivity and revenues. It's worth it. So things like diversity and inclusion training. And before you think, oh my goodness, that's too woo-woo, that's so alt-left, not doing it, not happening, we don't care, we get it. We celebrate Juneteenth and it's all good, right? We check the box and we change our logos to rainbows in June. We're good, we got it, right? Tokenism, That's not what it is. It is connecting with people who really talk about inclusion and diversity of thought and of experience, and bringing that together in an environment where they feel that their differences are welcomed and celebrated. That's what DE&I is. It's not woo-woo stuff. It's really important. And look at all of the studies. Harvard Business Review, LinkedIn, Deloitte, et cetera. They all show that companies that have women on the staff at the leadership team and have people of color on the team, guess what? They perform 3 to 20 times better. Imagine that, right? All right. Here's another one. This is really good for training. Conflict resolution workshops. So when you've got people butting heads, give them some tips and tricks on how to navigate conflict so it doesn't escalate, because none of us want that horrible situation, which is happening in more and more workplaces, where somebody is ultimately dismissed because they are so aggressive, and then they come back some days, weeks later, armed and dangerous. And we all know where that goes. It goes south very fast for everyone. You want to nip that crap in the bud. And millennials and Gen Z, they are so interested in leading. Give them the tools they want. Teach them how to be leaders. Encourage that as a culture. Celebrate lifelong learning. Have Friday afternoon book club or reading clubs, or Friday afternoon, you say the last couple of hours, everybody has to go learn something, whether it's learning how to do a new instrument and play that, or learning some new technique or tool or something that's going to be able to help them. Great. Getting a certification, allowing that time in the workplace. Bravo. That's professional development. That's what people want. And then again, like I said, lead by example, model that appropriate behavior. Every time you see toxicity, nuke it promptly and effectively. Boom, shut it down. No wiggle room, no ifs, well, maybe, and lightly tippy toe around. No, call them out on their BS and say, that's it, that's the line. I will not tolerate that in this team. I will not tolerate that in this company. Done. And leave the silence at the end. Let your words land. Be a role model, right? Someone that people look up to. And we talked about communicating openly and honestly, that it's dialogue. Listen to your employees too. Not just hear what they're saying, but listen to understand and let it land. These are the things that you can do to be an effective leader in the workplace, so that you can get ahead of the potential for toxicity by creating that positive environment, that lifelong learning culture, that culture of continuous improvement, that culture of communication and collaboration that people want to be a part of. If you do that, all that ripple effect stuff we talked about at the beginning, you avoid it. You spin it up the other way. You create a positive culture. It gets people more productive. It raises their morale. It keeps the retention rates high. It attracts other people in recruiting. More people come in. The company starts to grow. You make more revenues. You add people, right? The complete opposite of the ripple effect of when you have a toxic workplace and don't do anything to stop it. Lead by example.